Hey everyone, welcome back! I recently put out a new Titania video for 2025, covering a complete endgame setup that uses her entire kit, including her razor flies, to deal millions of damage per second and destroy everything around you, scaling all the way into endurance. That build also used a lot of bells and whistles to work, and, well, many of you asked if I had a more general use build for everyday Titania gameplay. That's today's build. And it also marks the return of Razorwing Blitz, because I actually used it on this build unlike last time. We focused a lot more on Dex Pixia today, because it requires less bells and whistles to prop up and is a lot more familiar with everyone. This is a self-contained build that has very few extra parts, and only uses 137 energy a minute, and thus would actually be quite compatible with Duviri's circuit, which is another concern many of you expressed with my previous build. So, what does this Titania do? Reasonably high pistol damage, with the typical Pistoleer option for infinite ammo, some armor strip, and good status DPS. But it's also extremely good at defending objectives. You know, Duviri defense? Notice how none of these enemies really care for me and are pretty much pacified. How does this work? Some of you may have already seen a recent cool discovery going around the past few weeks, where Damage Decoy was found to be able to activate all 13 status effects for Arcane Impetus, granting you a free 78% strength and 39 efficiency at all times, and even constantly refreshed itself. A cool discovery indeed, but costs you your helmet slot, so where would you use it? Well, what if I told you that Titania has a very interesting interaction with Damage Decoy? See this ability here? Lantern. This ability has really good pacifying effects, preventing enemies from attacking anything within range, but it had a serious problem. Enemies outside of the pacify range, which is only base 20 meters mind you, were free to shoot you, your friends, and the defense objective, and this pacifier itself? It had no aggro, so enemies had no reason to walk in range. This obviously put you, your friends, and the objective's survivability at risk. Damage Decoy fixes that. All versions of Decoy have by default 100 meters aggro range, which also goes through walls. It also has the highest aggro priority in the game, even higher than you, your teammates, and the objective. Therefore, enemies will run through hell and back just to get to the Damage Decoy to shoot it. Nothing can resist the draw of Damage Decoy. It even works against Xmas units through Overguard. But this doesn't prevent enemies from using their weapons, AoE abilities, or misfiring and hitting something else. And this is where Lantern comes in. If you cast Lantern and Damage Decoy in the same enemy, they will pacify themselves no matter their range. Additionally, all the enemies that have been trying to run towards the Damage Decoy without shooting will also become pacified once they reach Lantern's pacify range. This fixes both Lantern's lack of aggro pull and Damage Decoy not preventing enemies from spamming their DPS at the same time. This is how we protect ourselves, our friends, and also the objective. Let's look at the build. It doesn't need any Archon shards, so you can ignore these are just from leftover stuff. But it's very simple. None of the auras make a huge difference, so I chose Summoner's Wrath to boost my Razorfly damage, since they can still be very helpful for dealing with Acolyte attenuation as they completely ignore it. Otherwise, feel free to use something else. I also have a Peculiar mod here, because, well, the Exilus slot is irrelevant. Be it Pressure Footed so that you don't have to remember to cast Spellbind, Preparation so you have a full tank of gas at mission start, extra range, extra strength, I don't care. So let's lead with the Arcanes. Impetus is obviously used due to the Damage Decoy interaction discussed earlier, because the Reflect status procs count as unique status effects and can stack all the way up to 13, granting 78% strength and 39% efficiency. Notably, Lantern's passive AoE somehow counts as a status effect and can constantly refresh the duration of Impetus by itself, even without Damage Decoy. Thus, so long as Lantern exists on the map with enemies near it, it is impossible to drop Impetus stacks. Arcane Pistoleer is used because this is a Dex Pixia focused build for infinite ammo. Headshots will be easy to get due to partial armor strip from Corrosive, procced by Archon continuity, because our Dex Pixia is modded Blast Toxin. Because enemies are capped to 2,700 armor for 90% damage reduction these days, removing 80% of that removes almost all of their damage reduction. You could even use Emerald Shards to max out Corrosive procs for full strip if you want. Razorwing Blitz allows us to get all the fire rate we need on Dex Pixia for max DPS, especially when Pistoleer is active. Just make sure to not use Sprint. Damage Decoy is obviously used because we need it to synergize with the Lantern. Interestingly, the Damage Decoy damage is also buffed by Summoner's Wrath. Beguiling Lantern is used because it's a final damage multiplier. You don't really need this at base deal path, but it'll make things easier for Endurance or Duviri Circuit as the damage taken scales with Strength. Precision Intensify is used because our main source of DPS in this setup is Dex Pixia, and lesser so her Razor Flies, both of which scale off her 4. This build goes all the way to 323 strength with Impetus on Razor Wing and 233 on all other abilities, even if you don't use Materai, meaning enemies will take plus 233% final damage from Beguiling Lantern when you hit them. Streamline is present to stack with Impetus reaching 169 overall efficiency to make your Damage Decoy and Lantern dirt cheap to cast, thus we don't need to rely on energy orbs. It also minimizes Razor Wing Drain to 1.25 seconds, because 169 efficiency only needs 124 duration to bottom out channel costs. We run 152, so that Spellbind lasts longer and Lantern plus Damage Decoy lasts nearly 40 seconds. For our normal weapons, note that this is optional. You can bring a primary kit gun with Pax Bolt and primary Obstruct. These primary arcanes for some reason proc on the secondary slot Dex Pixia and applying to it. Don't ask me why. But Obstruct is nice crowd control and also ensures enemies stop moving for nice headshots to proc Pistoleer and Bolt. Note that Obstruct requires you to magnetic proc with your own weapons, so you will have to mod magnetic on Dex Pixia if you want this arcane to work. Otherwise, note that melee mod buffs or Incarnon trees do not work on Razorwing. This has to do with a different kind of holster method that Razorwing uses compared to normal exalted melees. This means Firax's augment for plus 60% fire rate doesn't work. Ruvox's movement speed buff, Okina's speed buff, both don't work. The list goes on. TLDR, melee gimmicks can't buff Razorwing. However, if you choose to for some reason build your melee to 12 times combo with Gladiator stacks, note that going to Razorwing will freeze the counter and give you an indefinite 11 stacks. Our Dex Pixia is built like this. Toxin Blast with high status. Toxin lets us proc Arcane Continuity for Armor Strip, both for raw damage and the Blast AoE scaling. Hornet Strike and Guncio for more base damage as well as status chance, since Dex Pixia is a status spammer rather than crit DPS. Multi-Shot for even more procs and damage, and Bane because the Blast 10 stack AoE triple dips this as well, and the normal small AoE double dipping. Seeker so they can mow down entire crowds at once with blast procs and armor strip, and note that if you want to use primary obstruct on the kit gun, you will have to sacrifice a mod here for magnetic. Use the new magnetic might mod from Warframe 1999 update, so you only have to give up one mod slot. I'd remove Hornet Strike if you do this. The Diwata build is the same as the previous Titania video. We won't focus on the build much this time, but note that they can crit and have old school scaling with condition overload. This mod is super important and they literally deal 0 damage without it. Duplex spawn from our Sentinel can produce easy priming even when we're in Razorwing, so that's another consistent source of status effects so that Razor Flies can do their job. Honestly, you don't have to worry about this much, as the only time I'll care about Razor Flies on this build is when we kill an Acolyte. If you do care about maximizing their damage though, do bring a normal melee along to build to 12 times combo with all 3 Gladiator mods. Focus School, I don't care. Use Materai if you want to snapshot more strength into Razorwing. Let's move on to companions. Pick anything that can reach 1200 shields if you can, because then you can equip Reinforced Bond for plus 60% fire rate on Dex Pixia. The rest you can get from Razorwing Blitz. If you have no companion that can reach this, it's not really an issue. The build still works, well, it's just a bonus. Otherwise, nothing here really matters. Just throw on whatever you want, because your companion completely despawns when you're in Razorwing, and become incapable of activating almost 99% of active precepts they normally have. Duplex Bond is an exception. You actually still make clones in Razorwing, and this is extremely useful for priming enemies automatically for your Razor Flies to kill via condition overload and extra crowd control. Remember that Duplex Bond Sentinels are considered completely unmodded on the companion and only inherent mods of the weapon. The Tazicor I'm giving my Sentinel is modded for Electric, Radiation, Mag, and Viral so that I get extra CC and priming against all health, armor, shield, and overguard types. It's a chaining nucor weapon, so if you have Duplex Bond up, you just get multiple nucors running around all over the place tagging everything. Do note that this build has pretty good efficiency overall, so it will take quite a while until you get Duplex Clone to proc. To play this build, make sure you have Damage Decoy on an enemy first for a bit before you Lantern them. Lanterning pacifies everyone and prevents them from shooting the Decoy, meaning you will not be able to proc more unique status effects to stack Arcane Impetus to 13. Wait until you reach 13 first, then do your first Lantern on the Decoy. After that, just remember to snapshot Impetus and Matter Eye if you brought it into Razor Wing, and enjoy! Remember to cast Spellbind for status immunity if you aren't using Pressure Footed. Otherwise, just spam your 1 to stack Razor Wing Blitz and blow everything up with your Blast Armor Strip Dex Pixia. Recast Razor Wing if you want Razor Flies to deal with an Acolyte, and then occasionally recast Lantern and Damage Decoy. Cheers! If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'm trying my best to get you new information out always as soon as possible, like we're doing with the Warframe 1999 update. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds. You don't want to miss out on any of that, do you? That'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and see you all next time.